Are you a homosexual? Hey guys, Ryan here. So we got like a million questions to get through, so I'm just going to forget the formalities and just dive straight in. That sound cool? Okay. How difficult is it to make a video essay, and how much time does it take? This one really depends on what I'm talking about and the level of depth I'm going into it and how much I care to edit it and a million factors, just a million goddamn factors. However, to give you some rough approximation, let's look at the Transistor video. I played through that game about 4 times before uploading that video. So right there, that's like 25 hours. And that's not including me having to go back and pick up footage for things I missed or whatever have you. Then there's writing, which is probably actually the longest part of the whole thing, especially if I'm still kind of finding what I have to say on it. A lot of what I found to say about Transistor, I found in the act of writing that script. I didn't necessarily go into it with that in mind. So as a result, there was a lot of rewrites, there was a lot of just adjustments and tweaks and a million things. I have no way of saying exactly how many hours I spent working on the script, but I'd estimate it was somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 50, and then I have to record audio, and that is not really a strength of mine. I'm someone who likes to do multiple takes of each line so I can pick and choose, you know? And that's great for the finished product, but it also means that it takes a long time to get through. No joke though, I'd say for every minute and a half of actual audio you hear from me, there's probably somewhere between 12 and 15 minutes of unused, thrown away takes. And that's not even counting in just, you know, basic fuck-ups. So the audio on something like, again, the Transistor video, that took me 3 days. 3 8-hour days of just sitting down, recording chunks at a time, editing it down, recording again, till I have 40 minutes of usable audio. Then finally I have to actually edit the video, and this is something I've gotten kind of better at actually. Nowadays I can generally get through the editing process fairly quickly. I know what I'm doing on that front. However, that being said, there's no way around it. Editing still takes time. So yeah, using the Transistor video is kind of like a high-end example. I'd say that took me around 150 hours to make. Or in other words, it took me about 150 hours to generate around 40 minutes of content. So yeah, if you want to take that ratio and apply it elsewhere to see how long other things take me, it won't be exact, but it probably won't be that far off. God, just seeing it laid out like that, ugh. What am I fucking doing with my life? Do you have any thoughts on the Darksiders franchise? Seems pretty cool. Sorry, I don't have much more to add. I've played the beginning of both of them, and they seem like solid games. They seem fun. They seem like something I'd enjoy. It's just there was, like, always something else I could be playing, you know? Like, I got Darksiders 2 at the exact same time I got Transformers Devastation, and guess which one I was going to hang out with. They're games I hope to visit one day, but not quite yet. But I do think they're worthy of respect near as I can tell. What got you into Persona and Megaten as a whole? You see, asking that is kind of like asking what got me into, like, games, you know? Because the thing about Megaten as a, like, meta-franchise is that there's just so much fucking shit. If you want a purely mechanical experience, there's stuff for that. If you want a strategic experience, there's a game for that. If you want something narrative-focused, then boy do I have a thing for you. And that's kind of the beauty of Megaten as, like, a franchise at large. But that being said, to actually answer the question, it was the storytelling, because I started with Persona, as basically everyone I know did. Persona 3 was my first one, and then from there I just kind of started to explore. That being said, if I had to pin an overall favorite quality on the franchise, broadly speaking, it would without question be its atmosphere. There's just nothing else that quite feels like it. It's very alien, but very familiar. It's like everything's just kind of twisted. Am I saying it's David Lynch? Am I saying that Megaten is David Lynch? You know what? I'm going to run with that for the sake of this. Yeah, it appeals to me in the same way that something like Twin Peaks appeals to me, where it's just like, I recognize it, but everything's just off, you know? And I think that's really fucking cool. Will you do a Metal Gear retrospective, or is that Foxcade's thing? That's Foxcade's thing. I may talk about Metal Gear at some point because, you know, I do love the series, but it's also kind of hard. I don't want to say the conversation around those games is complete, because no conversation is ever complete, but it's kind of hard to find a new angle that hasn't been very thoroughly tackled by someone. What are some of your favorite games in anime? Okay, so a while ago, I did a tweet thread where I basically just tweeted out a ton of games I would give a 10 to. I'll link to that in the description if you want, like, a thorough listing of basically all of my favorite games. Suffice to say, though, basically pretty much everything you would expect. That being said, for those of you who don't want to click a link, I'll flash my 3x3 up here. But like I said, probably more or less what you would expect. As for anime, a lot more of stuff you would probably expect. I'm a real big fan of Evangelion, Gurren Lagann, Revolutionary Girl Utena, Hunter x Hunter, Kill la Kill, and so on. I could name check some more obscure stuff. I'm more into anime than the average person, but I'm not into it as I would ultimately like to be. That being said though, everyone go watch Hunter x Hunter. It's fucking flawless. God, that should be its own fucking series of videos. Have you ever played any of the Yakuza games? It is to my deep shame and eternal regret to announce that I have not. I want to, and I have played a bit of one, but it's also one of those things where it's like, I feel wrong not playing the games in chronological order, even though I know that's going to harm my enjoyment out of them. And I should probably just start with Yakuza 0. That seems to be like a deliberate, like, almost soft reboot, and I should just kind of give into that, most likely. But I do have a deep interest in it. It does seem like something I would genuinely love with all of my heart, and I fear for the day that I do inevitably get around to playing it and love it, and suddenly this channel is only fucking talking about Yakuza. Because the odds of that happening, I think, are pretty fucking high. What game is there that you really like or love, but know that people will question your credit as a hardcore gamer? Man, I don't really know if there are any. But then again, that's because I don't really buy into the hardcore gamer thing, you know? I guess if someone from that crowd wants something to be mad with me with, I kind of really like the walking simulator genre. I think Gone Home and Firewatch were fucking fantastic. Go ahead, crucify me if you want. I fucking really like them, like, a lot. Then again, if you care enough about this channel to watch me do a Q&A, then chances are good you probably already sort of guessed that. Who are your favorite YouTube channels? For the most part, I'd say it's a lot of channels you would, again, probably guess that I'd like. Lindsay Ellis, Folding Ideas, Mr. B-Tongue, Red Letter Media, Super Bunny Hop, H-Bomber Guy, Shammy, Errant Signal, like, you get the idea. Unsurprisingly, people who do analysis tend to watch a lot of analysis themselves, and as such, that's what I'd say the bulk of my sub box is made up of. That being said, if what you're looking for are YouTubers who have really influenced me and that I care very deeply about and would love to take an opportunity to, like, shill for them and tell you to go watch, like, everything they've done, then that I have a couple for you. And this is going to be weird for me because all of these channels are bigger than mine, so me doing a shout out feels weird, but fuck it, I get to talk about something I love. Nyx Fears is absolutely amazing. She's doing things right now with the form of critical analysis on YouTube that no one else is doing. She eternally brings a super fresh perspective to every single thing she talks about. She's so well worded, there's so much production value in all of her videos. She clearly gives so much of a shit about her work, and it's just constantly inspiring. She got me to give a shit about Tyler Perry, like a genuine shit. Go watch that video and tell me you don't walk away at least fascinated by him. Another one I'd really recommend going to watch is Filmjoy. He has a lot of subscribers, but does not pull anywhere near the numbers he deserves in terms of views. I really dig his more emotionally centered analysis. He's more concerned about how films make you feel than he is about, like, oh, let's analyze this fucking screenplay trick that we've already made 30 videos on. No, he talks about what a movie means, and more specifically, very often means to him personally. And if that sounds familiar to my channel, yeah, there's probably a good reason for that. Also, his newest video at the time of uploading this is just, oh god, it's just one of the most brutal gut punches ever put on YouTube. Just go watch all of his shit. He's so good. Conjun is another YouTuber I absolutely adore, and I think he's the funniest person on YouTube, bar none. That being said, I think a lot of that has to do with my sense of humor. Because he's not for everyone. I think even he would admit that. But if you're someone who gels with his sense of humor, like, it may become your favorite thing ever, because that's what happened to me.
Members of the jury, Gino says I'm fucking idiot. But are we really willing to believe a man who has publicly admitted to killing his wife and children?
I killed my wife and children.
I rest.
Oh, and also he does video game analysis as well, and he has some of my favorite essays dropped this year. Watch the Sonic Adventure 2 one. It's wild. I promise you it is worth your time. Noah Caldwell-Gervais is easily the best writer on games. I don't even feel the need to qualify that. There's no one doing better just blatant writing about games than him, at least to my knowledge. And lastly, and this is at the risk of getting political, but I don't really care, ContraPoints has the best channel on YouTube. As far as I'm concerned, that's not even debatable. She's doing the most important work, and she's doing, honestly, the best work. I can't think of anyone else on this platform who is up to her standard of quality even half as consistently as she is. As for smaller channels you should check out, I highly recommend Core Ideas, Hyperion, and Curly Brace. I'll link my favorite video that all three have done down in the description, but they're all doing fantastic work and deserve way more recognition than what they've gotten so far. Also, there's this channel called Foxcade that you should probably check out, I guess, if you're into some kind of fucking nerdy shit or something. I couldn't keep it going. God damn it. Go subscribe to Fox. What is the first game you played? That would be MechWarriors 2 for the PC. I remember when I was like, God, I don't even fucking know. Could have been 6, could have been 8. I genuinely do not remember. But one of my earliest memories is my dad sitting me down in front of a computer and was just like, okay, this is called a video game. You click on this, then this opens up, and then you press these buttons and blah blah blah, and next thing you know, I'm commanding a giant robot, and it's the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen. So yeah, MechWarriors 2 was the first game I ever played. Which game has left you pondering on it the most after you played it? At this point, probably Nier Automata. I'm sorry if that's a really obvious answer, but like, dude, it's been a year and I'm still sorting through what that game means to me on like every level. There's a reason we haven't gotten a video about it, is because I don't know what I'd say on it. I'm starting to come around to some ideas and things that I think are worth saying that other people haven't really picked up on. Like, we're definitely going to talk about it at some point. I just needed to digest it, and I'm still digesting it, and at this point, I'm kind of nervous about whether or not I'll ever be able to digest it. What is the most bafflingly underrated game you've ever played? I mean a game so good, so fantastically brilliant, yet no one you talk to knows what you're talking about. Fish, I know you're setting me up, because I know that you know my answer to this question, but I'm going to take the bait anyways. Shadow Hearts Covenant. Everyone go play Shadow Hearts Covenant. That game is so fucking good. It's a fucking 10. It's a 10 in every way that a game really can be. It's funny, it's exciting, it's kind of terrifying at points. It has a deep emotional core, but also has one of the best combat systems in any JRPG I've ever played. I've been trying to make a video about this forever. It's just fucking hard for me to talk about, because I really love this game, and I really want everyone to play it, and I don't know how to justifiably sell it. But it's so good. It is frankly maybe the best JRPG I've ever played. Yes, I'm including Persona 3 and 4 in that. I love both of those games very dearly, very obviously, but Covenant is just so good. Everything about it is just fucking the best it could be. It has amazing art design, its OST is brilliant, its writing is constantly on point, it's rich with themes and ideas, it's hilarious as often as it is tragic, it's just fucking everyone go play it. Everyone go play it. I don't even care. Please, I'm begging you. I'm gonna make an actual video on this at some point that's more, structured than this incoherent, rambling mess I'm spewing at you right now, but for real, it's in my top 10, and rightfully so. I will go to bat for this game at literally any waking point in time. Ugh, it's just so fucking good. What is your favorite world or setting in a game? What is a world you always look forward to going back to and exploring every time you play it? Ooh, this is a good question, and there's like a million different ways I could answer it. Because I could answer with the world I would most like to live in, which would probably be the world of Persona. I could answer with the one that I find the coolest, which would honestly probably be Final Fantasy VII if we're being honest. Because it's got that really sick mashup of like magical mysticism, but also cyberpunk that nothing else really has. It's really fucking cool. I could answer with the setting that I found the most atmospheric and lent the most to the game it belonged to, which would probably be Bloodborne. Or I could name the setting that I found the richest and constantly rewarded me for poking and prodding at it to see what else existed within it, which would probably be Morrowind. Because that's a game that the setting is basically the story. So yeah, I could probably keep going like this for a while, but I think that will do for right now. We got other stuff to get to. If you had the money and the expertise to revive/make a sequel of a game, what will it be? Shadow Hearts Covenant. I'm not fucking around here. There's no reason this shouldn't be a massive IP. Give it to me and I will make this profitable. I fucking swear, I will make it profitable or I will die trying. Do you have any habits in your life that affect you when you play games? There's actually more to this question, but here's the screenshot. Yes, of course. playing games is kind of an inherently personal experience that you're going to bring some amount of your personality into some way or another. I find it hard to get through as many games as I would like because, well, I work on this channel. One of the great paradoxes of having an active YouTube channel is the more active you are, the less time you have to play games, which makes it harder to write about games because you haven't been playing any games, so you begin to stall and then it becomes a whole thing, and yeah. Not that I'm complaining, obviously, I enjoy doing this, it's just, I'd be lying if I said it didn't get in the way sometimes. Beyond that, if we're talking about, like, personal habits, then yeah, also, still, definitely. I'm kind of a perfectionist for how I express myself, for how I want my actions to be viewed by others around me. And that does bleed into my gameplay because, frankly, I feel that gameplay can and very often is a form of self-expression. As such, it is not rare to see me take a single hit of damage and immediately reload to the last save point, because god damn it, I shouldn't have taken that damage, and now I'm mad at myself and I'm mad at the game because I shouldn't have taken that damage, and I'm going to get through this without taking any fucking damage, god fucking damn it. I've been playing Bayonetta 2 recently, guess how much I've been doing that? I'm picky. I'm picky with my performance. That translates both into my videos and me just playing games. It's part of the reason why I've had such a hard time streaming, is because I always want to make sure that I'm like streaming gameplay that isn't shit, even though I know no one other than me really cares. I mean, of course some people care, but you know what I mean. Short thoughts on Wonderful 101? It's a good game I should spend more time with. What video game do you think most positively and negatively impacted your life? Oh, that's easy. Final Fantasy VII. Easy. That's the game that showed me that games could be art. That's the game that made me well and truly fall in love with games as a medium rather than just like something to distract myself. It was ground zero for who I was. It's also what brought me into internet culture, which is why I say it's both positive and negative. I could trace my entire adult life back to having played Final Fantasy VII, because the first time I moved out with someone, it was with someone that I'd met on a Final Fantasy VII forum. If you want to account for the butterfly effect, then Final Fantasy VII has affected my life in ways that I don't think anyone could have ever predicted. But to put it all in perspective, it's safe to say that this channel would not exist, at least in the form that it does currently, had I never played Final Fantasy VII. Hell, I wouldn't exist in the state I currently am if I hadn't played Final Fantasy VII. Also, while we're all here, Final Fantasy VII isn't overrated. It's not. At least not anymore. It's been like a decade of people saying it's overrated. At this point, it's kind of underrated because everyone keeps insisting it's overrated. Go play Final Fantasy VII. It's aged pretty well, all things considered. Really fucking good. Still gets a tear out of me every fucking time, and not for the reasons you think. Opinion on the Ace Attorney series. That's a series I've always wanted to spend more time with. I want to go through the entire thing at some point, but like, at this point, that's a lot of games. That's a fucking lot of games. And there's a lot of other, like, VN sort of things that I kind of need to get through too, so I don't know when I'll get around to them. That being said, though, I have played the first two games, and they're cool. They're really cool. I think they're really fun, charming games. It's kind of like what I was talking about a week or so ago in the Call of Juarez recommendation thing, where, like, Ace Attorney is one of those games that's clearly not trying to be, like, the Citizen Kane of gaming or some fucking bullshit. It's just trying to emulate the feel and tone of like courtroom procedurals, and it does that really, really well, and it's infectious, you know? It's good. It's good. What got me into gaming as a whole? Like I said, Final Fantasy VII, but if we're talking about gaming as a whole, then I feel like that's probably kind of reducing it down. Thinking on it now, if I'm being honest, I'd say that Game Informer played a big part. If I hadn't had some kind of connection to gaming culture at large, I don't know how invested I would have stayed in all of this. But getting Game Informer each month and being able to just like comb every inch of it really solidified that games were a thing in my life. What franchise do you hate/dislike more than others? I'm sorry guys, I don't get the appeal of Uncharted. I don't. I can't stand it. The gunplay's boring, Nathan Drake's an asshole, everything's so railroady, the platforming is just like follow a single path while mashing X. I hate it. I hate it. Like, if I wanted to just watch an action movie, I would just go watch a fucking good action movie rather than whatever the hell this is supposed to be. I wish I liked these games. There's clearly a lot of love and effort put into them, but like, God, I just don't fucking get it. I don't fucking get it. And to be clear, if you like them, I'm not trying to take that away from you. Go ahead, have at them, enjoy it. It's just, God, they're so fucking boring, and like, every choice they could have made. Do you think the soundtrack of a game has the ability to make or break a game? Yes and no. I mean, the obvious answer to this is it depends. Because, like, if Guitar Hero had a bad soundtrack, then it'd be kind of dead in the water, right? Because that's all it really is a soundtrack. Same with any number of rhythm games. But if we're just talking broadly, then I'd say kind of yes. I don't think it has the ability to break a game, unless it's, like, exceptionally, distractingly bad. And I've never heard a soundtrack that's, like, really that bad in a genuine, earnest commercial release. That being said, I don't know if I would have taken the time to learn Metal Gear Rising as thoroughly as I did if the soundtrack weren't, like, the best fucking thing ever. Don't get me wrong, I think MGR is a great game outside of its soundtrack, but, like, to actually get into it requires a bit of patience, and I don't know if I would have had that patience if not for the fact that the music was so fucking sick. I could probably pull out a better example of that, but you get the idea. Your videos seem to have a lot of focus on the way the story/mechanics of a game affect people in real life, in a pretty psychological sense. Is there a reason for that? First off, thank you for picking up on that. That is very deliberate and very intentional on my part. And yes, there is a reason for that. It's because I think that's a very important form of critique that is kind of being underserved in gaming at large. I'm not trying to shit-talk anyone here, but a lot of analysis is very much stuff like, how do these mechanics work? Do they connect well? Do they mesh well with the writing? Etc, etc. And there's definitely a place for that. I watch a lot of that. I adore a lot of that. I've done some of that. But the fact of the matter is that, as far as I'm concerned, games are art. That's the end of the discussion. As far as I'm concerned, games are art. And the purpose of art, as far as I'm concerned, is to affect us emotionally, on some level or another. And I don't see many people writing about games who really dive into it from that angle. And I think it's an important angle to pursue. So, you know, be the change you want to see in the world. Plus, it's the style of critique that makes me the most emotionally fulfilled. I don't like just saying that things are things, you know? I like to explore what those things mean to me and why they mean those things to me. So yeah, TLDR, I read it that way because art affects us, and we should talk more about how art affects us. What game were you most surprised by how much you enjoyed it? Okay, so I actually have two answers for this. One, oddly enough, is Infamous Second Son. I picked that up expecting it to be like just a disposable, like burn my weekend sort of game, but I genuinely enjoy it and I feel it's kind of underrated. Like, I'm not saying it's a masterpiece or anything, but I think it's a really strong 9 and easily the best game in the Infamous series. I know a lot of people will fight me on that. Go ahead, have your opinion, that's cool. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not even fucking fair how much better Second Son is than the rest of them. And I say this as someone who really liked the first two. The second one, and this is embarrassing, probably Katawa Shoujo. Like, it's debatable, yes, it's a VN, and if you're about to fucking comment that VNs aren't games, just don't. I'll just fucking delete the comment. I'm not here to have that argument right now. Anyways, yeah, I dived into this game kind of out of a morbid sense of curiosity. I mean, it's a game developed by 4chan about disabled girls. I was prepared for a fucking train wreck. What I actually got, though, was this really nice set of, like, intimate, meaningful stories about these really complex characters. All of it shockingly tied back into this moral of treat women like people and recognize they have agency to make their own choices and you don't have to control them, which is a shockingly humane moral to come out of a game, again, designed by 4chan. So yeah, that was shocking. Also, go play Katawa Shoujo, it's very fucking good. Favorite game of 2018 so far? Most anticipated game of 2018? I don't know, man. I haven't really been playing that many games this year. Not a whole lot has dropped that's like really grabbed my attention. Though, if we're being honest, it's probably Dragon Ball FighterZ. It's the first fighting game that I've like really clicked with and genuinely adore and care about watching and want to be like seriously involved with. It's fucking fantastic. Yes, I recognize it has its problems and you're free to dislike it or want to play another game or whatever, but I really gel with it, I really love it, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. As for most anticipated game, well, Luca's coming up right around the corner. Full disclosure, I edited the trailer for that game, but it's a really good trailer and you should definitely go watch it. Anyways, as I've said before, that game is basically Bloodborne plus Bayonetta plus Humaniki. It looks fantastic. Beyond that, fucking Smash. What else? Does the fact that all of the Persona spin-offs are canon bother you at all? No, not in the least. I don't care. Not even kind of. It will only start to bug me if A, they bring back Minato, like canonically revive him, at which point I will be furious, or B, the main games start to like contort and twist themselves in order to like make sense of the spin-offs, which hasn't happened yet. But say if like Persona 6 were to start like actively damaging itself to make room for spin-offs, then yeah, that's where I'd start to have a problem with it. Would you say that Kingdom Hearts 2 is on par or close to DMC3's quality? Yes and no. They each do their own thing very, very well. And Kingdom Hearts 2 is one of those games I would give a 10 to, personally. I think it's fucking phenomenal from beginning to end. But to compare it to DMC3, I mean, it depends what you're trying to compare. Because DMC3 definitely has better combat, but Kingdom Hearts 2 still has kind of almost underappreciated combat. Like, go watch Bloody Biscuits do a speedrun of the Organization 13 files. It's fucking wild, the shit he does. It really reveals just like how much depth there is to the systems in this game. But if we're just saying like overall quality, do I think they compare? Then yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I'm always going to rank DMC 3 higher than Kingdom Hearts 2, but Kingdom Hearts 2 is still really fucking good. I get why that was the game for some people, the game that like really sparked their passion for this. I can see how that would happen. Which aesthetic/OST would you like to see in Persona 6? Man, at this point, just give me a fucking, like, Persona game that's, like, grungy and punk and just all kinds of fucked up. That I'd like to see. Are you actually as built as your talking graphics seem to indicate? If the answer to the previous question is yes, are you single? I'm certainly as broad-shouldered, for better or worse, but built may be a strong word for it. I am certainly not a small person, though. As for the second question, I am single to anyone willing to deposit at least $10,000 US into my bank account. God damn it. Can you name at least 3 things from any medium that affected you so strongly on an emotional level that it physically brought something out of you? Tears, serious anxiety, euphoria over perfect aesthetics, loud shouting over hype, or just a feeling, behavior you straight up can't explain? Yeah, no, I have a million things like that. That being said, how about 4 examples? One from each of my favorite mediums. Ghost Trick shocked me so thoroughly that I physically dropped my 3DS due to how taken aback I was. Basically, every Charlie Kaufman movie always evokes just this deep feeling of loneliness in me, for want of a better term. I can't think of any better way to phrase it. Just this intense feeling that I'm isolated in a way that may not be fixable. Not saying that that's the case, but it always evokes that feeling in me, and it's a really powerful, unique feeling that only he can really get out of me. BoJack Horseman has gotten me to reevaluate my entire life on multiple occasions, and always leaves me, like, genuinely exhausted after having seen it. It's a fucking amazing show. Everyone go watch it. But, like, God, it's so fucking heavy. And lastly, Have a Nice Life's album, Death Consciousness, gives me this feeling of something that I can only really call nihilistic acceptance. It makes me feel how getting Infinity Gauntleted must feel. That's the best way I can think to put it. It's such a strange and fascinating album, and nothing has ever quite captured that, like, density of just nothingness. It's absolutely fantastic, and there's almost nothing like it. Have you played the Dishwasher Vampire Smile? No, I have not, but I'm aware of it. I'm actually a pretty big fan of Ska Studio. I thought Salt and Sanctuary was fantastic. I think I have this game in my library. I need to double check, but I am aware of it. It does seem like something I think is really sick, and given that certain builds in Salt and Sanctuary allowed you to do basically this, I trust that it will be good. Plus, I think this meshes much better with the art style they have at hand than Salt and Sanctuary did. Also, if you haven't played Salt and Sanctuary, add that to your list. It's really fucking good. Are you a homosexual? The fuck do you think? What are your thoughts on the 3D Ninja Gaiden games? My thoughts, if I'm being honest, are that I need to spend more time with them. Every time I've tried playing them, I have inevitably wound up getting stonewalled in some way or another, and like eventually just dropping it because I'd just be like, oh, fuck it, I'm just gonna go play Bayonetta or something. That being said, I have gotten a lot better at action games since I last tried it, and I can tell that they are good games. They're just, you know, fucking hard, especially for people who are going into them more or less completely blind. So yeah, it's something I need to spend more time with. What do you think about strategy games? Do you like them? If you do, which one is your favorite? Well, it depends on how we want to define strategy game, but generally speaking, yeah, it's one of my favorite genres. As a matter of fact, the second game I ever played was Command & Conquer Red Alert. I also spent my entire childhood playing Fire Emblem to fucking death. That being said, mechanically speaking, I've always been a bit more partial towards RTSs than I am, like, traditional turn-based strategy games. As such, I'd say my favorite ever is probably Red Alert 2. Fast-paced, lots of fun units, there's a ton of build options, the game has an immense amount of content, it's fantastic. Do you think we're ever going to get a Drakengard 4? Yes, especially after how well Nier Automata did. After how much Nier Automata pulled in, given how low its budget seemed to be, I get the sense that Taro can just walk into Square Enix at this point and say, I want to do something else, and they won't even question him. I could be wrong, that could just be me being overly optimistic, but like, honestly, I would be really shocked if we did not see a Drakengard 4 within like, I'd say the next 10 years tops. Realistically, probably next 5. Do you think games like The Last of Us and God of War are having a negative effect on games by trying to be more realistic than fun? You see, I almost feel like this is kind of the wrong question to be asking, because I don't think realistic precludes fun, and more importantly, I don't think being realistic necessitates being kind of mediocre in some way or another. I mean, I'd say the modern Persona series is at least as realistic, if not more realistic, than both God of War and The Last of Us. I mean, they're all predominantly centered around experiencing high school student life as a kid in Japan. You don't get much more realistic than that. That being said, I don't think realism in and of itself is any kind of problem. Now, if you were to ask me if I think this trend of over-the-shoulder, dead serious, very dreary, and dark stories about pseudo-parental figures, like lording over a child and going through a dangerous world, like on some kind of journey or some shit, whether or not that's a good thing, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I haven't seen it generate any games worth the hype that format seems to engender, but like, you know, I mean, Resident Evil 4 is right there. And yeah, that's not realistic, but it's the granddaddy of all of these things, and I have to qualify this fucking somehow. Like, I think there's a great game in there somewhere. I think someone could do something with that format. Hope someone does one day. Man, I am just taking pot shots at Naughty Dog. Favorite EX color skin / costumes from DMC4 Special Edition? This one. Scarf is sick. Do you think a JRPG-like world could work with a beat-em-up similar to Devil May Cry or God Hand? Nier Automata. You're describing Nier Automata. Go play Nier Automata. If you had to take any character from the DMC reboot and put them into DMC 5, who would it be and why? Ooh, I like this one. This one's fun. Although, honestly, there's only really one good answer to this as far as I'm concerned, and that is DMC Dante. Yes, I know, obnoxious piece of shit, but it's also worth noting that he's supposed to kind of be an obnoxious piece of shit at the start. Like, no one likes him. Like, in universe, no one likes him. Everyone thinks he's kind of a fucking prick, because he is. And I think if you took that kind of, like, arrogant shithead and just threw him into DMC's universe proper, like, I would love to see him just get knocked down a peg by Nero and Dante and have to, like, have that emotional arc that he had in basically the actual game, except, you know, better delivered and with mentors we like and respect and without all of the fucking bullshit around it. I think you could do something with Reboot Dante. I genuinely do. So if you were going to force me at gunpoint to put any of them in DMC 5, it would be that. I also wouldn't be surprised if the new character V actually had a personality kind of like that. Not saying that will happen, just saying I wouldn't be surprised. Hardest thing you've come across in DMC? Royal Guard flying. Can't do it. I'm sure I can one day. Today is not that day. Cannot do it. Unless you're asking me specifically about enemies, then Virgil 3, like, obviously. What was the moment when you decided you wanted to make the kind of video you're doing? Also, do you have any type of video you always wanted to make but never got around to make for reasons? There was never like one specific moment where I was just like, yes, I'm going to do like video essay, commentary, analysis things. It was just very natural because that's what I watched. That is the overwhelming bread and butter of the YouTube content that I consume, so it was just natural for me to, you know, pursue that myself when I decided I wanted to kind of throw my hat in the ring. That being said, if you're looking for like a really specific ground zero, if I'm being honest, I'd probably say Errant Signal's video on Spec Ops The Line, because that was the first time I'd seen someone do an analysis on a game that really recontextualized my entire experience with it and made me come to appreciate it in a much, much deeper way than I had originally. As for types of video that I want to make that I haven't gotten around to, there's a ton. Like, a ton. Games will always be the bread and butter of what I do here, because games are the bread and butter of my life, but there will come a day, potentially pretty soon, where I'm talking about films or anime, maybe even music, who knows. And there's going to be days where I do stuff that's considerably more experimental. So yes, there's definitely stuff I want to be making, but I'm not going to say I haven't got around to them quite yet. I'm waiting for the moment where I feel like I'm up to it, where the channel can withstand me kind of like pushing it a bit, and most importantly for me just to kind of feel that spark, you know? Do you have any pets? I have this Yarn Yoshi amiibo. I think that counts. When did you start playing Persona and Shin Megami Tensei at large? Also, what's your favorite game in the series? I started playing it after a friend insisted that I play Persona 3, and then I did, and then realized that was fucking amazing, and then I kept playing games, and now I'm the train wreck you see today. As for my favorite of the series, I'd definitely say Persona 3 and 4. I know that feels like cheating, I know that sounds like cheating, but I feel like those games are companion pieces. I feel like they're really designed to complement and build off each other, and to separate them entirely is kind of missing the point in a way. And besides, they each do what they do so flawlessly that, like, saying one is better than the other, just doesn't vibe with me. So yeah, I love them both equally. What are your thoughts on a Devil May Cry Bayonetta crossover? Man, I don't know. What are my thoughts on getting my dick sucked? Like, I want it. Like, I want that to be a thing very badly. Like, don't get me wrong, if getting that meant getting rid of both the series as their own independent entities, then obviously, yeah, I'll keep it as is. But, like, if they announced tomorrow that that crossover was happening, you're fucking joking if you think I'm not losing my mind over that. To me, this is a lot like asking me, hey, how would you feel if you woke up and found $200,000 in your bank account? Like, cool, yeah, good, yes. Do that, please, thank you. Oh wow, 4-part question. What made you start creating videos? This one's deceptively simple. There were things that I felt needed to be said that some people weren't saying. So I figured if no one else was going to say them, you know, I might as well. What is your goal with creating videos? In a perfect world, this would be both my job, a way to express myself, and a way to kind of help people out in whatever way I could. That's what I would like this to be. I don't know if it will ever be any of those things, but, like, that's what I want this to be. And all I can really do is keep plugging away at it and hope that one day it becomes what I know it can. What/who are your biggest inspirations? Okay, so I'm just going to rattle off some names off the top of my head of things that I consider to be, like, foundational to this channel and kind of the viewpoint I tackle it with and the things that I bring into it from the things I love in my life. So yeah, just count these as the inspirations. There's definitely more beyond that, but let's have this as the starting point. So, that being said, Jeff Rosenstock, Jim Sterling, Toonami, Evangelion, Punk Rock, Mr. B-Tongue, Kanjin, Devil May Cry, obviously, Vaporwave, Hip Hop, Charlie Kaufman, Edgar Wright, Gurren Lagann, Dan Harmon, Captain Christian, Adult Swim, Kurt Vonnegut, and I think that's all I got for right now. I'm sure at some point I'll make a more comprehensive list where I can like sit down and like write them all out, but I think that gets kind of the core idea across. What are some improvements and changes you hope to bring to your videos soon? Twofold. One, I'm hoping to replace my old computer soonish so I can start doing motion graphics. Like, I've done them a bit here and there, but god, this computer's just so fucking old. It's hard. It's hard. It takes forever to render anything, and it makes doing motion graphics a chore. And two, I'm looking to get a camera soon, and hopefully shortly after that begin appearing occasionally in my own videos. This is never going to be a talking head channel, but, you know, sometimes it's just best to talk straight face to face, you know? Have you ever played any game by Ice Pick Lodge? I have not, to my eternal frustration. I know literally all of their games. I've planned on multiple occasions to play literally all of their games because they all seem really fucking cool. They all seem really like my kind of thing. It's just, I just don't usually. It just always slips my mind, you know? It's one of those things where you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm going to play a game, and you just don't think of that game. But I own like all of them, and who knows, maybe that can be a stream. Because like I am seriously interested in them, it's just a matter of like, who has the fucking time, dude? Are you a fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog games? Okay, so I was a massive Sonic fan growing up. You know how there used to be the rivalry between Mario and Sonic and all of that shit? I was firmly on the Sonic side. Nowadays, not so much. I think both franchises have their place, but Sonic has definitely dropped some clunkers over the years. That's not to say I think the franchise is like dead or anything. As a matter of fact, I'd say the best game in the entire thing only came out a few years ago, and that's Generations. I think Generations is easily the best Sonic game, and I think it got slept on entirely too hard because it got released in like the middle of these kind of mediocre games, but it's fucking amazing. Go play Sonic Generations. So that being said, I like Sonic. I would just like to see something more consistent from him, which seems to be happening, you know? So, yeah, I guess I'm a fan of Sonic again. Let's roll. Let's roll. Didn't even mean that pun. Shit. What are your thoughts on the Metroid series? My thoughts are that if you were to remove Other M, you would have a perfect series. What are your favorite musical artists/bands to listen to? I'm just going to throw up my most listened to artists ever. I highly recommend all of these. I think they're all fucking great, hence why I've listened to them so much. And if you ever want to know where like 90% of where my worldview came from, go listen to Jeff Rosenstock and Bomb the Music Industry. Like, that shit defines me. How do you combine a normal job, playing video games, and making videos? Very poorly. If I'm being honest, I find that I always have to give up one of them at a time. I always find myself spending individual days either working, making a video, or playing games. It's all very time consuming and can get very, very exhausting at times. That being said, if anyone were so inclined, you could always help me out with that and free up a bit more of my time. Nudge, nudge, hint, hint. I'm sorry, I can't help myself sometimes. Do you have any recommendation for folks who want to get into game development but have no previous experience? Yes, I do actually. And what I'm about to say is aimed at game developers, but the general idea is applicable to everyone who wants to make things. That being said, just go fucking make it. I'm not joking. Go fucking make it. Don't stand around talking about how, oh, one day you're going to make this thing, or maybe I can learn how to do this thing, or any of that fucking shit. Just go fucking make it. It doesn't matter if it's shitty. It doesn't matter if it turns out how you didn't want it to. Just fucking make it. You can always revisit it, you can always build on it, more ideas will come. The worst thing that can happen to an art project is it never existing. Go make whatever it is you want to make. Or, failing that, make a smaller, easier to make version of that thing. Because by doing that, you'll learn how to make things and get better at making things. So sure, you may want to create a sprawling 3D world rich with detail where every single area tells a story in and unto itself, with characters rich with characterization and theming behind them, with vistas so beautiful that years ago they would have been considered paintings in and unto themselves. You could want to do all of that, and good, keep that in your heart. But start by making a shitty top-down shooter. Seriously, go download Unity, Game Maker Studio, and just make something. Anything. It's better than making nothing. And if you want proof of that, look at my channel. The first video on this channel was basically the first thing I ever edited. And looking back on it now, like, if you like that video, I'm happy for you, and I'm not trying to take that away from you. But for me, it's nowhere near my standards now. I would not put up with it, but I needed to make it in order to make things that I'm happy that I've made. And that's the trick to being an artist, if we're being honest. Just keep making shit. Too many dreams have died as a result of someone speaking the words, "I'll do it when the time is right." Fuck that. Go make shit. You will always be shocked at how easy it is to actually get started. Because here's the secret no one wants to tell you. Getting started is kind of the easy part. All you have to do to be considered good when you start out is not stop. Sure, you may not be living up to the standards you want yet, but really, that doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're developing and you're getting better with each thing you do. It's the mastery where things get fucking obnoxious. So yeah, I have a roommate who didn't have any programming experience, didn't know fuck all about how to make a game, downloaded Game Maker Studio, and within a couple weeks he had a pretty decent playable demo up. It is doable. You just need to go fucking do it. If you have problems with procrastination, or you know you're someone who will look for any excuse to not work on something, set a schedule. That's the whole reason why when this channel started out, I had that hard deadline for every Wednesday. It wasn't because I wanted to like hit the YouTube algorithm or anything like that. Like, I hoped that would happen, but that was not my intent. My intent was just to make sure I didn't stop. You can break down a brick wall with your fist. You just need to punch it long enough. Same idea here. Artistic talent is overrated. Artistic commitment is everything. So get started and don't stop. Which of your videos are you the most proud of? This one's easy, my transistor video, no doubt. That video is basically everything I want this channel to be. I think it's my most insightful, I think it's my most well put together, I think it's one of my more meaningful ones, and I feel like if every video on this channel could be up to that standard, I would be immensely happy. That being said, I'm definitely very proud of both of my DMC3 videos, as well as both of my Persona videos. What do you feel is the hardest thing about having gaming as a hobby? I'd say it's the fact that it's probably the media genre with the shittiest business practices out there. I'm not even talking about just the fact that everything's so fucking expensive so often. I'm talking about the really shady shit like gacha games and fucking loot boxes and all of that fucking garbage. There's just so much predatory shit going around in gaming, and a lot of people like to sweep it under the rug like there's no problem. Like there's no fucking problem, when in reality, I've seen people burn through a lot of money they did not have because they were in some really bad emotional places, and a game just fucking got to them. But all too often that kind of shit gets brought up and people like to just pew it away, like, oh, they shouldn't have fallen prey to those games, they should have known better, that's their responsibility, as though these games weren't quite literally designed for the purposes of being predatory and exploitative. It's fucking shitty. It's fucking shitty, and I feel we're long overdue on a really serious cultural conversation about it. I think the Battlefront 2 thing was approaching the conversation we needed to have, but I don't think we're there quite yet. But I'll put it this way. No other genre sells itself on being addictive. Games do that all the time. That should not be a good thing. Engaging, yes. Absorbing, yes. Even something that may cause you to burn 16 hours a day. That's fine. But addicting, that's a fucking problem, dude. Foxcade asks, why should games be cancelled? Because you see, video games were created by the CIA in the 1980s to serve as a distraction from the US populace to make sure no one noticed that they were overthrowing South American governments for no fucking reason. And normally this would cause some kind of social upheaval, right? After all, we're interfering with democratically elected leaders. But everyone was too busy eating fucking video game dots. Their plan worked, and it's still in action. Cancel games, holy shit. Dude, if I wake up tomorrow and Alex Jones is actually trying to, sell that unironically, I wouldn't be fucking surprised at all. Has YouTube changed you as a person? Yes. Yes, it definitely has. I'm not allowed to be lazy anymore. I always have to be doing something. Otherwise, I kind of feel like shit. I have to be playing a game for the channel, I have to be writing for the channel, I have to be thinking about what I'm going to do next. It essentially forced me in a lot of ways to get my shit together. Although it does kind of suck, because what no one tells you about doing this kind of thing is you lose free time as a concept, basically. It kind of sucks. It's easily the worst part of the whole gig. Because like I said, if I'm not doing something for the channel or, to keep myself alive, then I feel like I'm wasting time. Like, I could be building something right now, and instead I'm just, doing nothing, and that's a shitty feeling for me nowadays. But then again, that's just the importance of learning self-care. Just recognizing that sometimes you need to say, no, you're taking a day off, relax, don't think about it, just do your own thing and emotionally recenter yourself. I'd also say it's definitely made me better at, analyzing media at large. Because, you spend as much time writing about this shit as I have, and you begin to learn ways in which to do it that you may not have originally thought of. So yeah, it's definitely changed me as a person. Thoughts on making a Shadow Hearts video? When is the new Persona 5 video coming? I know the series has taken forever, I didn't intend it to go this long, and at this point the moment has almost definitely passed for it. That's not to say I don't want to do it, it just means that it's kind of a back burner thing for me right now. Because the way I see it, I could spend the next 5 months doing nothing but talking about Persona 5, get through the series, and be done with it, but it would inevitably be rushed, and I would be clearly annoyed with the subject matter by the end, and I know I would begin to be lazy with it, and it just wouldn't be up to the standards I have for, the kind of thing I want to make. As such, what I've kind of found is best is to kind of just wait for it to become interesting to me again. It's also not helped by the fact that I have 100 ideas for videos that I think are kind of more interesting than that at this point. Not to say that isn't interesting, just I have things that I think are more interesting. Although with that in mind, we are finally starting to get to the points in the game that I'm really eager to talk about. So yeah, with any luck, I'll be more interested in the subject matter soon. I can promise one by the end of September. That I will do. September at the very latest. Going to see if I can get it done this month. Don't know if I can, but September by the latest. Would you ever consider doing some gaming on the channel? On here, I don't think I will. I mean, I could do some streaming, but I already have a Twitch account for that, and even then, I don't stream nearly as much as I wish I did. So, yeah. That being said, there's always the potential for another channel, you know? YouTube doesn't exactly limit me. What is your favorite video game soundtrack? Gun to my head, probably Bastion. If you force me to pick one, that's the one I'd probably pick. I mean, that OST unironically changed how I play guitar. I now always play guitar in the tuning of the Bastion soundtrack. I'm not joking, my guitar is like right here, it's right next to me. Give me 1 second. Fuck. Yeah, so like, I haven't tuned it, I haven't changed it, this is still the same take, and... little out of tune, but you get the idea. Sounds like shit. So yeah, I have a lot of favorite OSTs, but if you made me pick one, it would probably be that. Can you dab at the end of the video? I don't know, let's fucking find out. Do you still enjoy extra credits? Well enough, I guess. Like, they're fine. If you enjoy them, I don't begrudge you. But for me, their content feels kind of played out at this point, and Dan leaving was kind of like the ultimate nail in the coffin. Like, no offense to the new guy, he seems to be doing the job just fine, but like, it doesn't feel like extra credits to me anymore without Dan. And plus there was that stuff that came out with how extra credits treat some of its workers, and like, yeah, it's just not as fun for me anymore. Still respect James, still respect the channel, I think they do a lot of good work. It's just not for me anymore. Question: Pop-Tarts are not a sandwich. Fuck you, they are. Thoughts on the Infamous series? I think the entire series is pretty good, although the first two I personally think have aged pretty poorly. To me, the first two kind of represent the zenith of like 2009 open world design. Like, I think it's the best of that era, but I feel that era at large hasn't aged especially well. I'm sorry, I just don't find all that much compelling about running up to a building and mashing X for 40 seconds at a time to climb to the top. I think the core mechanics are good, it's based around open world traversal, and it just doesn't really give you all that many fun traversal tools. 2 is a bit better about it, but still has its failings, but it wasn't until Second Son that I feel it really hit its stride and just went all out, giving you as many tools to get around as humanly possible, and that was my second video ever. How do you make your videos? What's the writing process like? Well, usually I come up with a question I want to explore or a thing I want to say. One of those two things. So like, taking the character action video as an example, I base that entire video around the question, is Nier Automata a character action game? And from there, I just built on and explored the various answers to that question and how those answers work. Or using the DMC3 video as an example, my core thesis was, no, this actually has a really good story, let me explain. And then the rest of the video was basically me explaining why it was well written and how there is more depth to it than a lot of people give it credit for. From there, I just write things in support of that, or exploring that, or whatever have you. Usually at some point in this process, I'll run what I'm thinking by someone, usually my artist, editor, fucking everything, Jade. They're fucking amazing, and they have their own channel, and you should check that out. Anyways, yeah, after that, it's just a matter of sitting down and writing. Honest thoughts on the DMC controversy? Okay, so don't tell him that I said this, but Foxcade kind of fucking nailed it. There's nothing I really need to add to it because he's basically on point. I think it was a shitty situation made worse by how poorly each party handled it. I think the fans kind of acted like dicks from moment one and never really gave it a fair shake, and I can understand why. I was really upset at the time too, but it's been a while and not all anger is righteous, and the reaction was kind of overblown, without question. That being said, Ninja Theory did not handle it well either. They were dicks to the audience, and that's never a good idea. But with all of that being said, I think it's best for just everyone to kind of move past it. The game has found an audience that seems to truly love it. Classic Devil May Cry fans are getting a 5, and as far as I'm concerned, Ninja Theory has more than redeemed themselves since. They have proven that they're a good developer. If you don't believe me, then just fucking go play Hellblade. They might not have been the right developer for the job, but to say they're a bad developer? Wrong. Fucking wrong. Also, what's your favorite food? Okay, so I have the most Californian answer for this, and I hate that this is the answer, but I'd be lying to you if I said otherwise. My favorite food is a sushi burrito. God, I fucking hate having to say that aloud in a room filled with oxygen. Okay, so none of you know what this is, almost without question, but it's exactly what you think. It's a burrito that's also a sushi roll. But wait, I'm about to make it worse. I don't eat meat, so I like vegan sushi burritos. I'm sorry I'm like this. I wish it weren't the case. You all better roast me for this. This is me handing it to you on a platter. Fuck, dude. But really, they're so good. They're so fucking good. When it comes to a game's price, what matters more, quality or quantity? With all due respect, I disagree with the premise of this question. Because the thing is, with good enough quality, it becomes quantity. For example, by any metric, Watch Dogs has way more content than DMC4. Way more. That's not even up for debate. But guess which one of those games I've dumped 1,000 hours into? That's because DMC4 has quality, which made it into quantity, because I kept wanting to revisit it. So I feel like the quality-quantity debate in games is kind of overblown. Now, that being said, I also get it. This is something I'm going to be talking about pretty soon, actually. But there have been periods of my life where I could only get maybe a couple games a year. And when your resources are that finite, you want to make sure that what you're buying gives you the amount of entertainment you want out of it. As such, I'd be lying if I said there's never been a time where I bought a game that I knew was longer over a game that I thought I would enjoy more, because I knew I would be able to get more entertainment out of the former. Because it's easy for me to sit here and say that quality can become quantity, but you never really know if that's going to become the case until you play it once already. Like, I was lucky that I loved DMC4 as much as I did, but a lot of people only played through it like once, maybe twice, and then never touched again. And you know, that's fine, everyone has their own tastes. Likewise, my taste is such that I find enjoyment out of system mastery, of like taking the gameplay to its absolute limits. That's what makes me happy. But if you're someone who finds excitement in discovering a digital world, then, well, yeah, quantity may be your fucking deal. My point is that this isn't as cut and dry as pretty much anyone would like to make it out to be. Everyone has their own tastes, everyone has their own values, it's up to you to decide which of those is more important. What's your opinion on the JRPG franchises Xenoblade, Fire Emblem, Paper Mario, and Suikoden? Xenoblade is good. Fire Emblem is also good, but I don't like where they're taking the franchise. I need to play through the rest of the Paper Mario games, and to my great shame, I have never played a Suikoden game, even though I have been recommended it literally my entire life. Is it antisocial to not like online gaming even with friends? No, fuck that. Not at all. I know in this era of constant online connectivity and being pushed by basically every major game to play it with your friends and all of this fucking shit, it can feel almost weird if you don't want to play games with other people, but like, that's how I've spent the majority of time playing games. And you know, it's like I've always said, it's all down to taste. If playing with friends doesn't make you enjoy a game, then don't play with friends. If that offends your friends, then find better friends, because good friends should understand that you just don't like it. But it sure as hell ain't antisocial. Unless you're not playing games with people because you just fucking hate people, like it's a singular monolithic entity, like you just hate people. Then it might be antisocial, but otherwise, not antisocial. What are your overall thoughts on general pricing and monetization of games as it exists in the game industry now? What changes or lack thereof do you feel can be made to accommodate for rising development costs that accommodate both consumers and developers fairly? Okay, I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm on the Jim Sterling side of this debate. I'm not against game developers making money off their games. I'm really not. I'm not even against microtransactions and DLC. Go ahead, have them there. That's fine. I don't fucking care, especially if it's a long-running game like something like Overwatch that's continually updating and supporting itself and growing and all of that. That's cool. Go ahead. Have your microtransactions. I think that's just swell. It's when you tie those microtransactions to what are, in essence, gambling mechanics that I start to have a serious problem with them. Just be honest. Just make an honest sale. Just put the skin up, charge me $5 for it or whatever, let me pay for it, let me walk out, we'll both be happy, done. That loot box shit exists purely so I don't get what I want and have to buy more. And that is fucking scummy. Hell, it's scummy at best. At worst, it's straight up predatory. And yes, I know a lot of this is done to cover development costs, but you know what? I never asked them to make those games that expensive. Hell, the overall majority of my favorite games to come from major publishers are things that would be decidedly called middle shelf. Dark Souls was not a big budget game, nor was Nier Automata, nor was Drakengard 3, nor was Bayonetta, nor was any number of things I could rattle off at you. They didn't try to be everything for everyone, they were responsibly budgeted, and as such, pretty much all of them did fairly well for themselves. Some certainly more so than others, but my point stands. You don't need to make them that expensive. I mean, really, who here is going to say that they wouldn't prefer that Battlefront 2 just looked slightly worse and didn't have those fuckheaded loot boxes in them? I will gleefully take that trade. I never asked to be able to see every single fucking granular hair on someone's head. I never asked for a horse that shits in real time. I didn't want that. I never asked for it. You're poorly allocating resources. Of course, part of this comes back to the audience because graphics are ultimately what sells a game much more than basically anything else, unfortunately. But doesn't mean I'm going to be happy about it, and doesn't mean that I'm going to let them off the hook for their shitty choices. And again, I'm not saying I want every game to be middle shelf. Some of these games can justify it. I fucking loved Horizon Zero Dawn. But most of these games don't justify it, do they? Honestly, I can't remember the last time I really loved a AAA game that wasn't Horizon. Like, seriously, I'm trying to fucking think of, like, something that could be called a proper AAA game, and man, I got fucking nothing. They're all bad. Favorite look, costume, outfit for Dante? Coatless DMC1 Dante. That's what's up. What gameplay mechanics would you like to see come back from the reboot in DMC5? Aqualia. I really loved Aqualia. I thought it was a really sick weapon with a lot of utility that could have had a lot of depth to it if put in the right hands, and name a better pair of hands than Itsuno's. When does a boss go from being hard to bullshit? The line I would draw is reasonability, which is to say that it's asking you to do things that are reasonable. So like Ornstein and Smo, very difficult boss. Very hard to do, especially if you're new at the game. But what it's asking is ultimately fairly reasonable. It gives you a lot of resources to deal with them, and they can be a cakewalk if you're willing to cheese the fight, just summon like 2 other people and just steamroll them. You don't even have to fight. So I would not call Ornstein and Smo bullshit. They're just really hard. Conversely, in Lords of the Fallen, there's this one boss, and I can't remember its name off the top of my head, but it's legitimately one of the worst bosses I've ever fucking fought against. It was so bad. And I would call that bullshit, because it didn't really give you the resources to properly deal with him. He had a ridiculous amount of health, he could 1 and 2 shot you pretty easily, even if you took some time to go grind and shit. He had attacks that just hit the entire arena, and there wasn't any really easy way to work around him. He was just at a permanent advantage over you the entire time, and the only way to get through him was to not fuck up at all. And I don't think asking a player to not fuck up at all is an inherently bad choice, but I feel okay calling it a bad choice when it was the second boss. Like, that's a good choice for, like, post-game bosses, you know? Demi-Fiend is another boss like that, but I would just call that hard because it doesn't ask you to do that while you're still learning. So yeah, that's what I'd say the difference between hard and bullshit is. Question: why? Man, I don't fucking know. I just make YouTube videos. I don't have all the fucking answers. Who are your best girls from Persona 3, 4, and 5? Aigis, Rise, Futaba. When and what made you play video games? This is a question I could choose to interpret a couple ways, but I'm going to choose to interpret it in the way that I think is the most interesting to answer. Which is to say, I'm going to read it as it asking, what made you choose games as the art form you follow the most closely? That's how I'm going to read it. I apologize if that's not how you meant it. If that's not how you meant it, then I basically already answered it earlier. But yeah. Anyways, the answer to that question is basically, I think games are the most interesting art form out there right now. No other form has nearly as much development going on. Games are in their infancy right now. We are only beginning to see the beginnings of serious ludic language develop. Right now, gaming is where film was back in like the 1930s. We're only now really starting to get a real handle on how to deal with this art form, and setting certain baselines and standards. Some of them for good, some of them less so, but the point is we're seeing a lot of genre splitting, we're seeing a lot of new things develop, we're seeing a lot of creative risks taken. And that, for me, makes games the most interesting art form out there right now. Nothing else is blowing up in the way that games are. Nothing else is going through the kind of cultural revolution that games are. And as such, I find that I always have something interesting to talk about, or explore, or think about, or so on. Which, you know, kind of the whole point of art. What's your daytime job? Right now, I'm basically a video editor. Like, I'm not pulling in as much as I would like, but that tends to be how I spend most of my days at this point. Not just Codex, but working on other things as well. Speaking of which, if you need someone to edit your videos or anything like that, I am available. Why and how did you get into editing and making video essays? Well, I kind of explained how I got into video essays already. As for how I got into editing, well, one kind of begat the other. I started making stuff, I started looking for ways to make myself stand out, I started to kind of feel out what parts of the process I really enjoyed and which parts I didn't. And my favorite part of making any video, without question, is editing. That's always the most fun for me. That's the part where I get excited. So, as such, I just kept taking more and more time to learn how to edit, how to better pace my stuff, and next thing you know, my videos look how they do now. What's your favorite horror game and why? Okay, so I know a lot of people are gonna fight me on this, but Bloodborne. I mean, go ahead, tell me that it's not really a horror game, but hey, it scared the shit out of me. And honestly, I don't think any piece of media other than like Lovecraft's writings themselves have done Lovecraft as much justice as Bloodborne. That shit is legitimately unsettling, and it gets more unsettling the more you think about it, which is, you know, kind of peak Lovecraft. However, if that's not a good enough answer for you, then I'll say that one mansion level in Vampire the Masquerade. Fuck genre elitists. Shit. What's your favorite kind of candy? Oof, that's a hard one to answer. Lately, it's probably Take Fives. I only recently discovered them, but like, they're kind of everything I love in candy all rolled into one. Like, it's caramel, it's chocolate, but it's also got pretzel in it, so it's salty too. It's everything I want out of a candy. It's fantastic. My favorite overall sweet flavor, though, is salted caramel. Always. I will always be immensely happy to eat anything salted caramel flavored. God, I feel like my voice is kind of fucked at this point. Oh well. Hey, let me just ask you guys this very quick. Does my voice sound fucked at this point? Like, it doesn't reflect it in the actual runtime of this video, but I've been recording for like 3 hours at this point. Like I said, this shit takes a while. So if my voice sounds increasingly haggard, that's why. Do you have any thoughts on the Legacy of Kain franchise? I think I need to play it. I've heard good things about it forever. Still haven't played it. What is your opinion of Gaming Brit and his brother Hyperbit Hero? I think they're both fantastic, and that's not me being political or anything, it's genuine. Both of them are channels I have followed for a long time, like, oh my god, a fucking like half a decade at this point, Jesus Christ. I think they're both very talented, very smart, and very skilled at what they do. I just disagree with Charlie kind of a lot. Ratchet & Clank 3 is the best Ratchet game. The reboot was not that bad. There's obviously the whole character action thing, and yeah. That being said, just because I disagree with someone doesn't mean they're like bad or anything, you know? Or even wrong, just means I disagree with them. I can see where he's coming from with Ratchet and all of that stuff. It's just that I beg to differ. Hey Ryan, can you spell my name without butchering it? Yeah, sure, give me a second. Boom, done. Okay, to be fair, you probably meant pronounce your name without butchering it, in which case, no I cannot. What is your favorite place to play video games? In my bed or in my desk chair? Sometimes on a couch, always at my place. Although I will give a shout out to tournament venues. Those are fun places to play games. The energy is just always so high. I love it. When is that Zero Escape video coming out? Man, I just suggested that last week. Give me a break. It's going to be a while. I need to replay through the game before I write anything about it. But that being said, I do have a copy of the Nonary game sitting behind me, and it is something I genuinely want to talk about. So don't expect it soon, but I'd say probably expect it by the end of the year. Probably. Maybe. Hopefully. I am not famed for keeping schedules. Which game scared you the most? Silent Hill 2 is fucking terrifying. What gives you the inspiration to draw new conclusions and view different perspectives than other channels covering the same games already have? This one is deceptively simple. If someone has already said something about a game, I don't say it. It's already been said. I only ever talk about games if I feel there's something I can bring to the conversation that hasn't already been stated, or at least not stated on a broad platform. This is why it's taken me so long to get a video out about Nier Automata, because there was just so much discussion around that game that it's kind of hard to find like an in on something that hasn't been discussed. That being said, I do have some ideas. There will be Nier Automata on this channel at some point, but you get what I'm saying. Which game are you really embarrassed for liking? Be it because it questions your good taste, or because you deem it bad but like it anyway? I don't really have anything I like that I'd call bad. Sure, I have some things that I know are flawed that I still enjoy, but that's also like basically everything ever. I mean, if I deem something bad, then I just don't engage with it, you know? That being said, the closest thing to an earnest answer I have for this question is probably like cheesecake games. You know, stuff like Hyperdimension Neptunia, you know, with all of the cute anime girls and them being moe and all of that fucking trash. I love those games. I know they're trashy. I know they're lowbrow. But they make me happy. It's not my favorite thing ever, but I do enjoy it. Have you ever played Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, and if so, does it have any fertile soil for a video to ever be made about it? Yes, and yes. It is an immensely good game with a beautiful story that I could talk about for a long time, and most likely eventually will at some point. It just, you know, like I said, got a million topics to get to, and each of these kind of takes a while. Besides DMC, what is your favorite video game series? If I'm being honest, probably Ratchet & Clank, right? Like, I've played literally every game in that series, and I kind of like basically all of them. Although being real, the actual answer at this point is probably Shin Megami Tensei. Did you play Nier Automata in English or Japanese? And what's your stance on the whole dub versus sub debate? I played it in English because the English voice acting was good. I think that anyone who commits to either dubs or subs exclusively at the entire rejection of the other is kinda shooting themselves in the foot. There are some things that, yes, are much better subbed. Without question. One thing I forgot to mention in the Cool Games video is that 999 got a dub in the PS4 port, and it's bad. It's bad. Turn it off. Don't play with that on. It's bad. A bad dub can destroy a game or an anime or whatever. However, there are some dubs that are completely fine. Hell, some that are even fantastic. And I have seen people wholesale reject dubs purely because they're dubs. Like, go watch the dub for Panty and Stocking. That dub is fantastic, and I have seen people just treat it like it's shit purely because it's not the sub. Like, don't get me wrong, you can have your preference, but like, you don't need to shit on actual talented voice actors who are doing good work in order to express your preference. Because there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of amazingly skilled voice actors in English. That also being said, don't commit exclusively to dubs because there's also a lot of really bad voice actors in English, and there's a lot of great stories that would be just completely fucking eviscerated if you took them with their dub. Be adaptable, yeah? Are you into fighting games? If so, what kinds? Yeah, no, I love fighting games. I absolutely adore them. I wish I were more into them. Like, I hesitate to call myself a member of the FGC, like, in the most literal sense of the term. But, like, I'm definitely getting there. I'm definitely getting there. Especially after this last EVO, because, like, that was fucking wild. Like, every grand finals was just absolutely captivating to me. It was fantastic, and, like, I just this week bought Tekken 7 because of that. I'm hoping to get XR'd at some point in the near future. Like, I'm in it now. Especially since, like, I've been really vibing with Dragon Ball FighterZ. Yeah, I'm definitely getting there. Of course, though, if you want to count Melee as a fighting game, then I've been really into fighting games for years, but I'm not even going to fucking open that can of worms right now. What is your most hated game? Final Fantasy XIII. I have never played a game more inexcusably terrible in my entire life. It has no justification being in the state it's in. Every time I think about it, the longer I think about it, the more punished I feel. It's like the inverse of Nier Automata, whereas I think about that and I feel rewarded for it. The more I think about Final Fantasy XIII, the more I just feel lashes from whips cracking at my back. It just... God, I swear, just every time I think about it, I get angrier. Right now, I'm so angry that I'm going to end the Q&A, because that's how angry this game makes me, and also I'm out of questions. Before we wrap up, though, I want to take a moment to thank all of you, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart. This past year has been very hard for me for a lot of reasons, most of them deeply personal, but having this channel around and knowing that I had people who gave a shit about me and what I do, like, made a lot of that a lot easier than it would have been. I feel incredibly fortunate to have the fan base I've cultivated, and that's not just like me trying to sugarcoat this or anything. Like, I've had other YouTubers come to me and be like, dude, how is your fan base so cool and laid back and chill? And like, I guess I just got really fucking lucky. So thank you guys. Thank you so much. This channel is going to keep going places. It's not done growing, it's not done changing. As a matter of fact, there's going to be a bit of rebranding going on in the near future. Nothing that will affect the core content really, just, you know, something that's a bit more honest to me and what I enjoy. But yeah, to put this in narrative terms, for me, this is the end of Act 1. But we still got an entire story to go. And I hope you will be kind enough to stick with me through all of it. or at least as much as you care to see. Thank you for watching. I love you all. Peace.